Hi, Dr. Eddie. You're here to talk about the pain field today. I know
Mhm.
this is a really important topic, so I'm anxious to have you present on that.
Yeah, it's something that's been bouncing around my head in the last month or so, and thinking of it as a visual representation for men who really struggle in helping their partners who have been betrayed. But what I want to start off with first is I have a very special guest today, and I want to just introduce you to that guest. Okay, so hold on.
You wouldn't tell me, seriously. I asked. Oh
Say
my
hello.
gosh. Oh
Say
my
hello to
gosh.
Smokey.
Oh,
He is
Smokey,
an
you're
Aus-
adorable.
he is an Australian Shepherd sheepdog. He is probably I've had dogs my whole life, and he is without a doubt probably the smartest dog I've ever had. When you
And
agree?
how old is
What?
Smokey?
And what's that?
How old is Smokey?
Smokey is 9 weeks.
Oh my gosh,
So,
adorable.
so he's getting
Oh,
along with his two older brothers. They're not really brothers, but
yeah, they
there
are
are
now.
other dogs,
Yeah.
and they're getting along pretty well. So anyway, I want
Oh,
everybody
he's
to meet
adorable. Thank you for
Smokey.
sharing. Hi,
Smokey's gonna
Smokey.
get over
Oh my
here,
gosh.
and
My dog is underneath. He's a herding dog, and he's underneath my desk.
that's what this
When I
is
say time,
like.
yeah, when I say time to go to work,
Yes,
yeah.
it's a herding dog. So
Oh, yeah, it's
anyway,
adorable.
so I'm glad you guys
Thank
let
you
me.
for sharing.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's get back to the playing field, the pain field. So again, this is a concept that I've been, flushing out. And I've actually had some help from a friend of mine. He's Coach Steve Lynott, who's been busy with this also. So let me kind of explain to you what it is. And when I hold my hand up like that, that's the pain field. Okay, as I do this, I have to get a visual representation of it, which I hope to do soon. But that's what I really want this to be. I want it to be something that men can look at, or betrayers can look at and say, oh, okay, you know what? I grasp this. I understand what I need to do. So what happens is that, a person who's betrayed, as far as I'm concerned, they go right to this pain field. All right. And the pain field that I termed it encapsulates, I mean, this heartbreaking emotional torment that betrayed partners endure. And it's a place full of despair, of fear, and healing sometimes feel like it's just not obtainable. And we know that many who suffer, they feel very alone. Sometimes they feel like they're losing their identity. Some feel like they're losing their mind sitting here on this pain field. And sometimes they feel like they're sitting there just by themselves. So, while the betrayed partner is seeking comfort from their spouse, the person who hurt them, okay, they want them to be here on the pain field because what they're looking for is this understanding and clarity of what happened. What is this infidelity? Why does it exist? How was I unaware of it for so long? And they're looking for those answers that will help them ultimately to put the pieces together that will let them move off of the playing field. But Tammy, this is where the problem lies, and you hear it all the time. You hear it in your women's group that you have, betrayers during any kind of grieving dialogue, and that's what I'm going to call it, a grieving dialogue. They run from the playing field. And they do so because what they're doing, they're seeking comfort using a bunch of various coping strategies, which I'll talk about in a moment. And so when this occurs and they run, the betrayed partner's inner child now gets fearful and feels that she's again being abandoned, or worse yet, feeling attacked. I mean, you hear that kind of story constantly.
Yes, yes. or dismissed. I mean, yeah, abandoned, dismissed, gaslit, or oh, just get over it, I won't do that again. So yes, lots of different ways that they are left sitting on the pain field alone.
Right. So while this happens, the betrayer escaped the pain field, what's happening is both people are speaking a different language. Okay. The betrayed could be coming across as being very attacking. But what's really happening, that language is that's her little girl or little boy, if you man who's been betrayed, who's screaming, I'm in pain. That's what they're doing. It doesn't look like that sometimes. It looks like hostility, but they're screaming, I'm in pain. And then on the other hand, the betrayer who's now moved off, he doesn't recognize that language that's going on, that's saying that she's in pain. And why? Because he's too busy allowing his inner child to speak a language of self-protection. His inner child saying, we have to protect ourselves. We're on this field with her, but we need to run away. We have to protect. This is getting dangerous for us. And when this happens, okay, it starts to happen when the betrayer leaves the pain field, okay, because they're both speaking different languages. Now, emotional dysregulation can really ratchet up to a high level. And when this happens, okay, then you have a risk of maybe the situation becoming volatile. By moving off of the pain field, the betrayer, what they've done and unknowingly is they've thrown fuel onto the fire. And now we have a potential explosion on the horizon. So, and we've seen this. I mean, Tammy, I'm sure you have many stories. I know I do too. This scenario plays out and it can have really horrific consequences.
Yeah, and I think I was thinking of, like, I was visualizing, there's this pain field and the betrayer running off the pain field, throwing fuel on the fire and missing the chaos that has been created as a, like, completely oblivious to that. But like you talk about, there isn't the tolerance to be able to do that. They're looking to calm down their inner child in the moment.
Right. The thing is, they don't think they have the tolerance.
Yes,
Carol, the coach, she talks about
yes.
she's the bucket is bigger than you imagine it to be, and that's true. So why do betrayers shift from this pain field? Why do they go to a different field? And it's a coping strategy. It's a coping strategy because again, their inner child is afraid, just like her inner child is afraid over here. And the inner child, senses the direction of the dialogue right now is starting to shift, and that the betrayed is becoming more upset. So immediately the child's like, okay, we're in trouble. So instead of, taking a break, calming the kid down, what the betrayer does is what he's always done when faced with emotional discomfort, compulsively just seeks to escape. He's seeking his own comfort. So where do they go when they leave the pain field? Well, they go to another field. There are many other fields that they can run to, and sometimes they go to several. So they can go to a defensive field, right, where they're being defensive. They can go to a very unempathetic field. Maybe they go to the impatient field, the uncomfortable field, the frustrated field. And, oh, what about they go to the dishonesty field? Okay, that's coming up. Or they go to the fearful and wilting field. Okay, they
Mhm.
just collapse before you. And one that we really dislike is they go to the aggression field and become more aggressive in trying to shut everything down. So you can see what I've done is I identified, I think 8 other fields that they can move to, and again, this whole concept is rather early, so I don't know. There may be others that I can, that will identify as we move on. But I believe a betrayer can learn to stay on the pain field instead of shifting. I think it's really important. And if that did happen, I also believe that it would reduce the risk of emotional escalation during these grieving sessions. So what I want to finish up here with you is talk about four ways that what are things that have to happen? Four things have to happen for the betrayer to be able to stay here on the pain field. The first one,
Before you get to that, I have a
yes.
question for you. How do you get the betrayer to want, like, because you're going to say, here's four things you can do, but how do you get them to want to stay on the pain field? Like that feels like the first step
Well,
of how do I decide that
okay.
I'm willing to do that?
Well, I think that also goes back to a question you want to go earlier, Tammy, is how do I get the betrayer to want to get sober?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you got to have that in your heart that you want to do it. And we've seen it. We've seen guys who they don't want to get sober. And we also see guys who don't want to stay on the pain field. Okay, no, I'm not staying there. I don't know what you need to get over this. But that again shows the condition of the heart.
Yeah.
And the heart's not in the right place. And that's why we talk to numerous women, on this show when they put their questions in, you talk to them constantly where we're saying, you know what? You have a more serious problem than you ever even thought you had. Because you have a guy who is so self-absorbed, who's so much in his head, and basically just saying, I don't give a damn. You know what? I want my life to be comfortable and calm. You know what? You work out your own problems. That's a much bigger issue than anything else. So getting them to want to, we can't drag them there. We can't drag. How many women have come into my office over the years say, fix him? No, I can't fix him. I can help him develop, but I don't know. Does he want to be developed?
Yeah.
Does he want to grow? Does he want to evolve? In many cases, some men don't want to do it. So I don't know if there's that real answer
No,
for
that's really helpful. So what I hear is for those that are willing, now you're going to say, and here's how you can approach this. And
yeah,
so
right,
like that's the key, and that's the key to all of this journey is being willing. We're not going to do it perfectly, but if we're willing, we stand a chance. So thanks for
right,
clarifying on that.
right. If we're willing. So
Hmm.
we start with number one, and you've heard me say it hundreds of times, slow everything down. Okay. There has to be this commitment to slowing, and I mean everything down. I mean, learning how to slow down your breathing, your pulse rate, your compulsiveness, your reactiveness, the assumption that you're making. Okay. You have to slow all of it down. That's the starting point for being able to stay here on this field, right? And what you need to do in order to get to that point, how do I start to slow things down? Again, I go back to daily meditation. I think it is so critical for people to be doing that on a regular basis because what you're going to do is we're trying to quiet down all the noise in our head. There's too much noise in our head. These guys who are us unemotionally developed men, we spend 80% of our time thinking about what we're concerned about, what we're worried about, what we would like to do, what we're feeling excited about, and then we give the other 20% to everybody else. And we have to shift that number. We have to shift that number a great deal. We have to quiet down that noise. And therefore, when you do that, that means you can learn to emotionally regulate much better. You take in your autonomic nervous system and you quiet it down a great deal. I just learned something last week that I didn't even know. Sighing quiet down the autonomic
Oh,
nervous
wow.
system. Didn't know that. We look at sighing for the most part as something that's bad. Like,
Yeah.
are you
Dismissive.
sighing
It sounds
about
like,
me?
you know.
Right, but it actually is something that can help you. But you have to sit there. And it does. If you think about it and you do it, it relaxes everything. And
But that's
including
different than me
diaphragm.
going, the more,
Well, right,
so
right.
yeah, like I just had that realization. What you're saying is, and it's more that groundedness,
Yeah.
rather than, so yeah,
But still, even is
probably
on
helps.
it down a little bit. Number two, I've mentioned this before, quiet down the child. Okay, the kid is in turmoil, not just your kid, her kid is in turmoil. All right. So therefore, you are trying, if you're trying to be, that kid's gonna drive you to be defensive, he can drive you to be dismissive. And it's important to keep him quiet because if not, what you're gonna do in these challenging times, you're just going to escalate everything. This is again throwing the fuel onto the fire. Your inner child needs to understand that you're not going to bring his childlike emotions into the dialogue. It's not going to happen. Instead, you're going to remain engaged and you're going to attempt to answer any question without a hint of being defensive and trying to run away. But you have to quiet the inner child before the conversation begins to ramp up. So therefore, if your partner comes and says, hey, I want to talk, say, okay, you know what? Give me 2 minutes. Go off. Okay, go in the bathroom, whatever. Kid, I'm leaving you behind. I'm not going to deal with raw emotions here. Instead, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to deal with it in a very rational way. And then you're going, and that's where you go. Now, if she complains about the fact that you're going to leave, you just tell her, I'm going to be right back. I just need to get myself prepared for all of this. Number three is we want to be not just present, but we want to be engaged. We need to be engaged. How many people, you can stay on the pain field, but if you're not engaged, you may as well be on another field, okay? Because you're not really there, so to speak. So therefore, being on the pain field itself is just not enough to help your, partner there to feel safe. Instead, you have to really prepare. You have to be prepared that I'm going to be present, but I'm also going to be involved. I'm going to be attentive. I'm going to invest in what's going on. I'm going to invest. And again, this takes preparation. So therefore, when I go off to quiet the kid, now what I also think is, okay, I'm also going to make sure I'm engaged, make sure I'm curious at times, make sure I'm going to be validating along the way, all of that. And again, if you find that your emotions are starting to dysregulate, you have to take a short break. You know what? I gotta go get a glass of water. You want something? I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Whatever. Just to sigh, okay, and make sure your kid is still quiet. Make sure that again, I'm gonna be focused, and then come back. Your breaks don't have to be that long. They really don't. And then the final point, which I think is one of the most critical points, and you've heard me talk about this before, you probably have read this. Identify the pain point. Okay. Your infidelity, okay, is the cause, but it's not the core of your spouse's pain. Okay. So let me say that again. It is the cause that caused the pain. But the pain they're feeling is not, oh, you cheated. The pain is how that cheating has made them feel. Right? We're going back to Gabor Mate, what he says. Okay. It's not the event, it is what they feel about that event. And so, therefore, you to stay calm, to be curious, be compassionate, to try to figure out what is that pain point that they're feeling. And this is essential. Because again, it's not, if you don't figure out what the pain point is, they're communicating something to you and you're over here because you're not picking it up. But the pain point goes beyond what you did. It taps into what their fears are, their insecurities are, and what their trust issues are, what they had before you even did what you did. So, for example, I'll give you a quick example, all right? You have promised you're going to call before you head home from work every day. You promised. And you know what? You didn't call. You arrive home, she's upset, and you're like, oh, you're upset because I didn't call. Okay, well, you know what? You're being absent-minded is not the pain point, it's the reason the pain was generated. Her pain point could be several things. One, you broke a promise. Okay, which again, if you're breaking promises, that's telling her you're not in recovery. Okay, or maybe she's feeling forgotten. That could be another pain point there's many different things that could be, and it could be multiple. You have to find what that is. By not calling and coming home like this, what's it making you feel? And if she said frustrated, angry, that I see. Go deeper. What do you really feel? Okay, get that from her, because the pain point is not an action or inaction that you've taken. Okay, but it's how the action or inaction have made her feel about you, herself, and the relationship. So seek out the pain point. And if you can't identify it, first and foremost, try, okay, make an attempt to do it. And it's okay to be wrong. All right. And you can ask, can you explain to me the emotional pain you're dealing with right now? Or if you throw out an idea and she said, no, that's not what I'm feeling. Okay, can you explain to me what you might be feeling? It's all right if you're wrong. And so to summarize all this, Tammy, for those who've been betrayed, if you see your spouse is moving off the pain field, tell them, I feel like you're not here with me right now. I feel like you're not invested at this moment. And, let them take a break and come back and see if they can try again. And you might be saying, well, why do I have to go through all that trouble? Why do I have to remind them? How come they can't just do it on their own? What? I'm going to go back to something I've said over and over again. What's the point? I mean, what's really important? That they get it right every time, or that ultimately that they are there to help, to assist you in dealing with your trauma? That's what I got for you today, Tammy.
Well, like just that last example. So first of all, when you're talking about the two kids, I had this visual of like two 5-year-olds sitting and they're trying to, like take care of themselves and they don't know what to do. And like you put two 5-year-olds together, they're not going to figure it out, but even just with this last little piece that you're talking about, it's like, yes, like being abundantly clear. Like I say this with partners often, I want them to have empathy. And I'm using genders, but I want them to have empathy. What does that look like for you? Just using those terms are like right on over. So if you say empathy to me would be, be very clear. And yes, you will have to tell them, and is it fair? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like ultimately, like just like you said, Dr. Eddie, if the goal is that we're working on healing this relationship, that we're working and being on this pain field together, and then hopefully moving off the pain field together, not one of us running away, then we're willing to do things that, technically, I shouldn't have to tell them, well, if I have found in my life, if I want something, if I'm clear about what I'm hopeful of, not just like hoping somebody, magically does the dishes or the laundry or whatever. It's like, if I say, would you please do the dishes? Guess what? The dishes will get done, whatever the example is, it doesn't matter. But if I, if I'm willing to use my words and do that, I love the visual even of like, this is the pain field and the partner going like, you've left the pain field. I'd like you back. And I love that visual of like, I'm showing you, I want you here,
Yeah.
with this. I really was thinking too of like the being curious, you won't guess right. I bet often a partner probably can't put a finger on exactly what it is in the moment. And so being curious and saying, can you tell me more? Like the two of you, guess what? That's a relationship. The two of you can, make some progress on that. And if it gets really messy, this could be something that we should talk to our, a qualified professional about to help us, because
Yeah.
this feels like a sticking point, but then guess what, the two of you are staying on the, staying together and looking to move forward on that, particular point as well. It's not, somebody just ran off.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, again, and as I said, I've talked about this before. I haven't heard a whole lot of other therapists talk about it. I hope they do. I hope they really start. But I think, and again, I'm not talking about the first 6 months. I'm not, I'm talking about after that. The goal ultimately is reconciliation. That's the goal. Now, again, he or she who betrayed have to be doing their work. They have to be evolving. All right. They're transforming. We're seeing it. They're being more consistent with it. Not perfect, but consistent. If that's the case, then we need to be starting to move back together, somewhat. And I know there are some therapists who are now moving that way. They're saying we've been too isolated with his work, her work, and we haven't done enough with their work. Because if you remember, it's always been, oh no, no, don't do any couple counseling. You need to do the one and the other, which I do agree at the beginning. I think she needs to process emotions, okay? Because if not, they sit on that couch and it is just brutal because you can't, couple counseling is about reconciliation or dealing with certain circumstances that are going on. So we need to give time for her to be able to heal through and process what has happened, to be able to learn how to emotionally regulate as we're going through all of this. But again, why are you in this? Why are you still together? I would hope it's because you do want to maybe get to the other side and make something that that you've never had before.
Well, and to tag onto what you're saying with the individual, yeah, we are always talking about, betrayed partners. It's the therapy process is very different, support and some trauma, work or whatever. And for the addict, it's behavioral. We need to help you change your behavior. We need to help you stop lying to yourself and everyone else. I mean, so it's very different types of help and so yes, at certain points, there could be, brief, couples just to navigate mediation, but all of this that you're talking about, like you said, is, kind of higher order. Okay, we're in a different place. We want to move forward. We're intentional. Like everything you're saying in this is, I'm intentional. I'm going to slow everything down. I'm going to take, a few minutes. Ideally, you've talked about like either of you can take a few minutes and get ready for, because
Yeah.
if one of you is bringing something up, okay, I'm going to take a few minutes and ground myself. That's a pre-planned thing that we know that we have the ability to do that, and we show back up again. That's we are in this together. We are looking to move this forward, and we are willing to do what we need to do. So yes, if somebody says I need to take 2 minutes, then the other partner giving space for that 2 minutes, so that but if they practice this, they're going to recognize that the person that shows up in 2 minutes is calmer, more ready to look at this in a way that will be useful rather than the reactive state.
You are absolutely right. And again, the idea that, and this was recognized decades ago, that men get flooded. Men get flooded a lot quicker and a lot, more frequently than women do. And when a man gets flooded, he has nothing to give you. But yet you keep trying to get something out of him. He has nothing to give. And therefore you need to allow him go, take your break, but he's got to come back. He's got to make that attempt, and he can't be taking breaks for hours unless it's really awful, and to be able to come back. This is not what Tammy talked about before, about the idea that, with men and women, the things sometimes we're different, in certain ways, the way our brains operate, all of this. And we need to be able to understand that and accept it. It just the way it is. You can keep trying to fight it, but you're gonna gain nothing from it. Understand you have so many things that are pressing in your mind, and you need to feel like I need to get it out now. He's just not there at that moment. He can't do it. Now, if that's his excuse constantly, then again, we have a different problem. Right? But I'm talking about the guy who will sit there for an hour and a half, and he will try to be curious, will try to engage, and then all of a sudden get to the point and says, you know what? If I stay, I'm gonna start butting heads. I don't want to do that. And it's like, no, 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 you have to stay. Well, what happens? What happens? You know, it's this. And then you get upset because, like, why are you being so defensive? Why are you being so aggressive? Why? Because he has nothing left.
Well, like, and you make a good
He was
point too. The
smart
hour
enough.
and a half of like it, that isn't healthy for anybody. Like, having
Hour
set
and a
times
half,
and going,
Tammy, I've had examples of 4 hours,
oh
6 hours.
oh
I've
my
had
God,
examples of
Dr.
all
Eddie.
weekend long. It's not effective. It doesn't
No,
work. It's counterproductive to the circumstances. And
yeah,
again, what are
I
you
couldn't do that.
trying to accomplish? What are you trying to accomplish? And I know in those circumstances, what you're looking for is a sense of peace. Well, you know what?
Mm,
You're not going to get it in that moment.
no,
If he is totally deflated and completely depleted, you're not going to get what you're looking for. And in fact, you're going to get just the opposite, which is going to make it worse than what it was before. Need to be smart about recovery. And I understand it may not give you that instant gratification you're looking for, but there's nothing instant about any of this. This is as you know, a journey. It's a haul, and there's going to be the bumps and there's going to be the pothole, but you need to be able to take it step by step. All right. And again, to continue to be able to have a Christ-like heart, because you know what? When it's all said and done, none of this stuff really matters anyway, in the end. You want to see that betrayer is changing. That's what you want to see. He may not change as quickly as you want him to. And you know what? And I'm sorry, I don't have that pill to give him or her. I just don't have it. Nobody does. Nobody does. Because we're trying to overcome their fears. But if we can do it step by step along the way. If we exacerbate the fears, what are we doing? Are we helping it? We're not helping it. I know some of you women right now are just, turn him off. But I'm just telling you what reality is. That's all. I'm just being real with you. You may not like the message. All right. But I'm not afraid to carry the message forth. I'm trying to help. I really am. So
and I'm with you. Yes, everybody's looking for the fast. Like, these are decades old, wounds and issues. And, like I use the 5-year-olds, like if you go like, okay, if we get stunted at about 5, guess what? Even if we're in bodies much older than that, we're still those 5-year-olds and we can learn, and it won't take us the decades that we've since aged, but it is a process, and it does all of this intention, willingness. So okay, so we've got questions. The first one is, welcome Smokey in the webinar. I love that. Yes. And the next one was, I thought it was going to be your wife or your dog. He is gorgeous. Thank you for sharing. And they're way ahead of me because I was like,
I keep
who
trying to
is
get my
it?
wife to come in. I keep trying to, and she's like, no, no, no. Anyway, one
Well,
day.
sometime. Well, yes. Okay. So the first question is, my essay and I got into a discussion in the car. Ooh, I think cars are the most challenging place to have a discussion because you're trapped. So, but anyway, that's an aside. I got into a car where his inner teen lashed out at me. Later, while we were at a large stream, he attempted to skim a rock where he could have thrown it in any direction. It was thrown in my direction and it hit and hurt me. He claims it was an accident. He has a pattern of accidents, but not physical to me in the past, but to damage to some of my heartfelt possessions. This feels passive aggressive, although he claims it wasn't intentional. I think this is a continuation. Am
Yeah,
I correct in feeling this may be an unconscious resentment against me?
it very well may be. Very well, especially if he's taken some of your, precious things you own and destroyed them. And then, like you said, you got all these areas to throw a rock, you gotta throw it that way. Yeah, I would be a bit concerned about that, and I think he needs to be talking to his therapist about his anger, about his resentments that he may have towards you. And yes, for you folks who've been betrayed, betrayers have their own resentments. Some of them not valid, some of them somewhat valid. Okay. I think personally, I think there's always a place and a time to bring up those resentments. I usually tell my men, we're sitting on these. We're not bringing these up now. This is not the season to do it. You should have brought this stuff up before you were doing what you did. All right. So you're going to have to sit with it now. It's like, oh, but I have feelings too. Well, you know what? Your feelings go on the back shelf. Because we have to work through her pain first. And then in couples therapy, when you're coming together, then you can talk about some of those resentments from the marriage itself. Yes, I would be staying on top of this. I would want to know that he is talking to his therapist about it. Maybe you even get into a session with them, but it definitely sounds to me, I'm not saying it's definitely the case, but it definitely, there's smoke here. Okay, and wherever there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, this like yes, I have concern for you and your possessions, but for you, this feels like the resentment is just boiling under the surface. So yes, the smoke or the explosion. So healthy boundaries for you. What you need for your physical safety, emotional safety, financial safety, spiritual safety. Those are the things that you do. Those are for your safety, not against what he's doing or not doing. But I really I would encourage a difficult conversation in a car where you're trapped. I've heard of people jumping out of the car because they felt so trapped. So it's one of those if you're going to have a difficult conversation, it's where you're sitting down. I like the 20 minutes, not the hour and a half or 4 hours or a weekend, 20 minutes. And we're going to that's if it comes up, that's a great thing. Let's talk about that in our next scheduled time, where we both have the ability to be grounded. We're present. We're not too hungry. We're ready to have that conversation. But
Yeah.
so delaying that difficult conversation to a time, or like Dr. Eddie said, with a qualified professional, to talk about something like that. But I'm concerned about your stuff, but I'm really concerned about you and your
Mhm.
physical safety. So I'd be extra aware of what you need to do to take care of you. Okay, the next one. If he needs a break, why say he has to go to the bathroom or needs a drink? He can be honest and simply say he needs to take a break and
I,
come back.
I'm just using that as an example. Maybe he does need a glass of water or whatever. No, I want to. If you listen to webinars in the past, I've always said, you know what? I need to take a break. And the reason
Mm-hmm,
I need to take a break because I feel like I'm becoming emotionally
mm-hmm,
dysregulated.
mm-hmm,
I don't want to sit here and bump heads with you.
mm-hmm,
You don't deserve that. I will be back.
mm-hmm,
Right. But there are many people who have been betrayed who don't want the betrayer to take a break. No, you will stay here. No, you will not move. Like I said, you're not helping the situation during that case. That break is needed so he can emotionally regulate. Because if not, he is going to get defensive. He may get aggressive. He may, who knows what goes on, but it's nothing good. There's nothing good. So anyway, those were just quick examples.
Next question, betrayed
You're
here.
honest.
I'm in the middle of the process after 4 months after getting back together. I'm really re-traumatized by this, even though he is doing his best. He doesn't get it at all. Defense, just being still, and I get frustrated. He decided we are going to see each other less, one-sided, even though I felt my abandonment trauma. I'm now trying to take my power back by focusing more on me and my recovery by taking more distance. Do you think that is a good move?
Well,
So
I
it sounds
think,
like they
yeah,
got back together again, but now they're looking to be
yeah,
more separate.
I think for you to, I think for all people who've been betrayed, I think there's a point where you need to be able to just focus on you. Don't be focusing on the relationship. Okay. Don't even be focusing so much on what his recovery is. Focus on you and what you need to do to start to feel healthy. He or she's gonna either do it or they're not gonna do it. I'll say it again, they're either gonna do it or they're not gonna do it. And I mean the recovery work. Hey, you can't force them. All right. You can sit there and you can micromanage all you want, but what does that tell you about the heart? And that's why I said sometimes you have bigger issues than you think you have. I mean, and infidelity is a big issue. But then you also may have somebody who is lazy, uncaring, maybe just not really wanting to be committed to the relationship. Those are things you have to look at and have to assess and evaluate. Not just, oh, what work is he doing? What work is she not doing? You have to look at the bigger picture also, and then sometimes to make a decision.
Well, and you give him credit for he's doing his best, and you didn't include him, and it's fine. But like, what is he really doing? If he's just not acting out, then that won't be a change. And you are, relatively early in the process. But each of you, like just like Dr. Eddie said a little bit ago, you each having your own, help, and your group. So navigating the contact with each other, but like, who are you? I'm glad you're here, but who are you? Are you with other betrayed partners? Is he doing the work with 12 step and with our drop-in groups and things so that he's connected with peer for accountability? That's the bigger picture of
But you go back to that line. Even though he's doing his best, that's his best. Now, lady, you're in trouble. Okay, that's his best. He's defensive. He's not being there. He gets frustrated, and now he's made the decision. You know what? I'm sorry. I got to back up with this. I don't want to spend as much time with you. That's his best. See, again, that's why I said you have to look deeper to say what's the whole landscape, not just our recovery. Because
yeah.
obviously there's other stuff that's there.
Well, and if you're feeling so re-traumatized, like that doesn't feel like there's been healing and that you're moving forward in a healthy and healing way.
And I can understand why she feels traumatized.
Yeah, no, I get it too. Yeah.
You
So
know?
Okay, so the next question, Dr. Eddie. I am the addict. I'm retired and my wife works part-time. On Valentine's Day, I cleaned the house, made a special dinner, and bought cupcakes. My wife was very upset with me because I did not get what she wanted. I'm trying to pick up on her cues of her wants, but I will be the first person to admit that I'm not good at that. Do you have any tips on how I can be a better attuned to my wife's wishes?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? It is not just spending time during those holidays or special days
Mhm.
of what you think she may want. I'll tell you something that I've done, and I've done it for years, is when Terry and I are out and like she'll like window shop or say, hey, I want to run into the boutique or something. And she starts looking at things and she goes, oh, I really like this. And I'm like, are you gonna get it? I said, no, I don't think so. But moves away and I just take a picture of it and I start storing these things up. And now I know what she wants. I'm also inquisitive and asking her about, she like, catalogs will come in or women's clothes and stuff, and she's going through it. And I'll say, so what's catching your eye? So I can get a sense of, the fashion that she's into for that particular season. I'm asking the questions throughout the year so I can get, because you know what? Her taste changes also. I don't know what it is with you women. I can wear the same kind of clothes all the time for generations and for, decades. You women you change all the time. But that's part of it. It's the curiosity to be able to do it. Like for example, maybe it was the cupcakes. Maybe she's not a cupcake person. Maybe she doesn't like the other. I don't know what it is, but to understand what is it that would warm her heart. And you know what? But I would say this, I applaud you for what you did in making that special dinner and trying to do that the right way. I applaud you. And I'd ask you not to get discouraged, but to keep pushing on. And now that it's been like a week after, go back and talk to her about it and say, the postmortem here, like, hey, what can you think I could have maybe done better with that? That's where I go.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. And here it might not have been anything you did. It might have been that she had to go to work, like maybe she had
That's
a
a
bad
good
day at
point
work.
too.
Like I don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it may have been the cupcakes you got the wrong flavor. Well, like now but like at the end of the day, you were trying and um I think it's really tricky because like we're going to give you attaboys but on the other hand she didn't and that's okay. But I love what Dr. Eddie, I was thinking the same thing. I would go back and say, I would love to, I'm curious, what would have been a better option? And she may have been, I'm sorry, I just, like, I wish I didn't have to work anymore. I don't know. I'm making this up.
But it would just help just to go back and say,
Yeah,
I'm sorry that you're disappointed, you know, can
but
we
don't
share
sound
this?
whiny
Now,
about it.
don't go into, this whole thing about like, oh, I tried so hard. That's not,
Yes,
I
exactly.
don't want to do that. But you know what? I'm sorry that you were disappointed with that. What could I have done differently? Maybe
Yes,
just with
exactly.
that thing there. Maybe that's what you learn from. Okay.
Yes, I love that idea. Okay, so the next question. Um, is there a place to get more information about different fields and the betrayer could be on? And also, to be, how important to the relationship recovery and the betrayer's recovery is it that the betrayer be able to be on the pain field? Mine can't and won't. I am thinking as soon as I realize they are not, the conversation is over and it feels more like additional abuse and trauma than helpful to my recovery.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, there you have, that's a certain, again, this this topic been coming up quite a bit here. He can't and he won't. A hard heart. So yes, that means it is important for a betrayer to be there to try to help you with your recovery, but it doesn't mean you can't recover without him. You
Hmm.
can. You can, because see what it becomes in that case is the idea that you know what, I have to look out for myself because he's not looking out for me. Okay, so I'm going to have to start the process of, okay, what do I want from life? What do I want to, experience? What do I want to ultimately be able to go back and feel in a positive way? And that's what you start to seek out. Okay, and sometimes you can do it. You don't have to be divorced to do that. You live your own life. You live your life. And again, we're not living our life and dealing with other people and infidelity and things like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about that I have interests, I have hobbies, I have things I love to do. And that's where you go. So you can heal, but it really would be nice to have somebody who cared that you'd want to heal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Healthy boundaries for you. I think you recognize that as soon as you know, as soon as they step off, the conversation is over, and it feels so. And don't, the more you can take care of yourself, so it doesn't get to be the additional trauma for you. Lean into your trusted people. Okay,
Hmm.
so this is a note. Gabor Mate says immature emotional parents create emotionally immature kids, future adults. I
Yep,
believe that. I haven't. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, here's one for you, Dr. Eddie. What do you know now that you didn't know early in your own recovery that you wish you knew? And I was like, you could probably write a book about that.
Oh
So,
my God, there are so many different things back then because see, when I went through my recovery, I didn't go through your typical, because it was back in the early 80s, okay? I
yeah.
mean, the sex addiction was just, Patrick Carnes was just doing his work. So I was with a psychologist who was kind of walking me through my attachment disorders and other things like that that I could turn and switch to. Um, the one thing that I didn't, would have been nice to know early in my recovery was the idea that the thoughts and the ideas and the temptation don't just evaporate. And they just don't, that they can be there. And also understanding why do they appear, okay? Because you can go days, weeks, months, and they're like way off. And then all of a sudden it's here. And then realizing, oh, that means I'm drained mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And how do you replenish yourself? So I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have known more about my inner child back then too. But again, it's all a process, right? It's all a process. And that's what we've been doing for over 25 years with this.
So speaking of process, I have over 3 years in recovery. We have a much better relationship now than my wife, or with my wife, thanks to what I've learned about myself and the child inside me. I do see the pain when my wife is triggered, and I'm able to sit in her pain in that moment. Things are going a lot better. My struggle is that sometimes there are days that I don't check in with my wife, and I get too comfortable with her, and she gets triggered. Is that pretty normal on recovery?
Unfortunately, it is, but it's not an excuse. Okay. I mean, again, and again, I applaud you also. You're sitting with her pain. See, that idea, what you said was, I'm able to sit with her pain in that moment, and things are going a lot better. So why wouldn't you try to do that more? Why wouldn't you want to be checking in with her every day? Because my guess is you're not going to get that, you know, long grieving dialogue every day. Why would you not? If things are doing better, let grow on it. And besides, you know what that is? That's nothing more than what healthy couples do. I check in every day. How, not just, oh, how was your day, but what was the highlight of your day? What was the low light of your day? What's going on? What's troubling you? You know, again, curiosity. So again, you're doing good work. That's wonderful. Consistency.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And I say this often in 12-step meetings, even, addiction is the only thing where things are going better. So I'm going to stop doing the things that have worked really well for me. It's the insanity of the disease. Put it in your calendar. Like you have a daily reminder. I'm going to check in, like there's so many easy ways to get that so that you don't miss. You see the rewards of doing it, so keep doing the stuff that's working.
I
Speaking of
want, I
not
want,
working, go
I
ahead.
want to jump. I want to jump to second question that's here.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
It's
Said
easy
it
to say that
easy.
you should tell your inner child to be quiet. And what does that mean in practice? The inner child is not a real person. My inner child shows up without fail when I feel threatened or scared.
Okay. So one, the inner child is real. The inner child is you. Okay. That fear, that's the threat that your inner child is doing. The metaphor that we use to externalize the addiction and what you're dealing with that. What did it mean to tell your inner child to be quiet? See, the problem the inner child had growing up was he was facing these fears, he was facing these threats, and there was nobody there to help him or her. Nobody to guide them, nobody to give direction. And all you need to do to quiet your child is to say, hey, there's an adult here. You're going to be okay. I'm going to handle this. I'm going to use rational thinking in this circumstance, not raw emotions, which is what I've used my whole life to drive me. That's how you quiet the kid down. I'm here. I'm an adult. We're not going to go from an emotional standpoint. We're going to use rational thinking to get through this. But the child is real.
Yeah, well, and they identify when I feel threatened or scared. So like you say, slow things down. I feel threatened. I feel scared. Slow it down. Be aware, like you, you have to do something different. If you're constantly bailing on the pain field, you're never going to be there. So, okay.
We have to go back to a question though. We skipped one.
Well, I actually sent a typed message. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
So
fine.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Since our
All right.
journey of discovery and fighting for our marriage, my husband has talked about how he doesn't think he is dealing with addiction, but more problematic sexual behavior. Regardless, how does his good work and recovery change if it is an addiction, spiritually speaking? What would you say if he's been in bondage for years, but it's not an addiction? This may be a confusing question. I
No, it's
get
not.
it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not a confusing question at all because guess what? Us therapists and thought leaders debate about this too. I mean, is it, just a compulsive disorder that we're dealing with? Is it an addiction that we're dealing with? There are several other things that we look at when it comes to this. The point is I don't care what you label it. Call it an addiction, call it problematic sexual behaviors, call it a compulsive disorder, call whatever you want. The thing is, you need to do the work to deal with the why you're being driven to it. What is driving you to act out this way? So yeah, you've been in bondage for years, all right? And like I said, it doesn't matter what you call it. The question becomes, why does it have a stronghold on you? And then in understanding that, figuring that out, now I can take the steps I need to be broken free of that. So, like I said, whatever you call it, doesn't really matter. What matters is, again, the idea that you figure out why does it have that stronghold on me.
We get lots of guys, it's actually usually partners, but that are reaching out that, well, he doesn't think he's a sex addict. And I was like, you know, uh, you guys are reaching out. There's an issue. You can call it an intimacy disorder. I don't care. But at the end of the day, you know, behavioral issues require behavioral change. You can't just, you know, wish it into, you know, a different place. And you're on here saying there's a problem in our relationship. So, you know, problematic sexual behavior, you know, yeah, the ICD-11, the World Health Organization has, I forgot what it's called, but you know, it's compulsive, you know, sexual behavior problem, whatever it is. I've got a blog on it. Email me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity, and I'll send you the information. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, whatever name you call it, if you're not doing any work to change things, you're stuck. He's stuck. Like just like Dr. Eddie said, you can heal, you can change, you can, you know, have safety and trust with other people, you know, regardless of what he does or doesn't do. Tougher, like, you know, you want to be in a relationship, you know, like Dr. Eddie said, you know, we're talking about reconciliation. How do we move together, you know? And if somebody's going like, yeah, I'm not an addict, I'm not, you know, whatever, you know, then, you know, you know, you can't row the boat by yourself. So, but okay, I'm going to take a picture of these. Actually, I think I can. I don't know. I will take a picture because I know I can take a picture, and we'll save these for next time. But we always have so many questions, and Dr. Eddie did.
Late.
I know, this is so
For
good.
those of you came in late, here he is.
Yes, isn't he the most adorable? You know, I know why puppies are so cute is because, you know, they're doing all the naughty things, you know, early on, and they're just so cute, you forgive them. So then they learn and they're better, but he's adorable.
Hey, he's almost housebroken already.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, folks.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Eddie. Bye, Smokey.
Bye.